All right. So, in this lecture, you should be able to understand what determines how much of a good a country should import or export, and what who benefits from international trade, and who does it harm, and whether these gains or these benefits outweigh the losses. So, if policymakers restrict imports, who will benefit from it and who will lose from it, and whether these gains outweigh the losses as well. එහෙන් කොදින්න ෆෙනත slides. දැන් නුෆෙන්න කොදින්න වෙදන ඉන්ටර්නෙට්ගේ issue එක. So මේක ඉතුර you should be able to learn and understand what are the common arguments people raise in favor of restricting trade, and whether these arguments have any merit or not. Then we will also learn about some economic integration in the world economy, and agreement So first of all, what is international trade? So this is basically the purchase, sale, or exchange of goods and services across national borders. Eggoma and Eggoma detrega goods and services badalu kuruma mikiani international trade. So this involves two things, that is importing. So simply put, it is buying goods and services from other countries, and the opposite of which is exporting, which involves selling goods and services to other countries. Then if we go back to the week 1 where I talked about 10 ideas of economics, I emphasized on that trade can make everyone better off. So how does trade make everyone better off? That we will learn in this particular lecture. So why do countries trade? There are several reasons countries trade, one of which is that different countries have different vectors of production. So for example, countries that have capital and high technological knowledge like Japan and United States will focus on industrial products. On other cases, while there are cheap labors, for example, in the case of Bangladesh or China, there will be a lot of manufacturing work going on. And for example, it has skilled labor. They might focus on agricultural industries. So different countries have different vectors of production. Then different countries have different climates as well. For example, Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, they have a very hot and wet climate. So a tropical environment. So because of that, rubber plantation is really beneficial for them. So different egotan ekitantanoga ekikahala climate sunnative ekikahala produces mi ufedigendani ekikahala climate ga ekikahala environment tahuwa. So that's why different countries have need to trade between each other. Then different labor skills. For example, countries like Japan, USA, Singapore, because advanced countries, they have very skilled labor force in their industrial sector. So ekhala skilled labors benuwa tasks ta ekhala gamutawa kuriya genda vidana tankole unskilled labors benuwa tasks ta ehen gamutaka specialist vandu kolla. Ege itura different countries have different consumption patterns as well. So normally different societies have different tastes, preferences, spending pattern, and etc. For example, Rajyaga mihunga testa awara tafatuwana Europe ge mihunga testa ka consume kuram benu goods so ekache wara tafatuwan ege itura misalaka rajyega wara boda consumption na abuda spend kuramu midane without saving as well nuniyamu rajyege CPI basket ge himene goods ta wara tafatu wegen dane ehin government ge CPI basket ge himene goods ta. So because of this event the trade is necessary. So, what are the benefits of international trade? So, I have highlighted that trade makes everyone better off. So, what are the benefits of international trade? One of which is that specialization benefits world trade because it enables different nations with different skills and resources to gain the rewards from division of labor. Purim boni ekigamato hunani ekikahala labor skills, ekikahala resources, ekikahala climate. So එක්ගවමුග උපෙදේචෙන් අනෙක්ගවමුග නූපෙදිදානේ. So in order, if we specialize on producing what is best for us to produce, then එක්ගවම අනෙක්ගවම දේතරේක world trade, international trade බෑනම් program we produce as no we goods and services exchange kurima, everyone will be better off by this specialization. It also enables economies of scale. So this is because it can be obtained by the size of the market. Economies of scale we obtained kurevani by the size of market. For example, I told you guys about economies of scale. Kurin kiyadin irugu misaka rajyega kudi kudi rattan honna tiwe electricity produce kuraru economies of scale obtained kuram varam undagu wegen ebade because we have very small number of households ehavara consume nukurati. That's why per unit cost vara boda high wegen midani. If we open our borders and if we go for international trade, we will be having access to new markets. Waki area ka confine muge badaluga muli duniya egame gofadda chevikke kamaga warnama, then you can mass produce it and enjoy the economies of scale by having a lower cost per unit. Then the trade will also foster competition, in particular when there is free trade between countries as well. So if this kind of trade restriction and netikami and trade hinga kamga warnama, there will be competition in the market in the world as well. So misalka domestic market ga trade anula, there could be only one firm producer in a particular product. It could be a monopolist. So in that case, the prices will be very high in the domestic market. But if we open up our borders, then other international firms who produce this particular good or services can come into the country and start providing those goods and services. And also, if we open up our borders, the companies in our country will be able to import these particular goods and services from other countries, which will make the competition higher and it will make goods cheaper in the country as well. So that's my other point. It will lower the prices and give our customers a greater spectrum of choices. So Hurimbunihen competition ituru wegen lower prices of annane ege itura, for example gawmuga resources dakkamu resources maduwima noniyamu gawmuga labor force misalka vara bodu pay denja hiyamu gawmuga ufaddachi vara agubodu vedane. But internationally living hunna the same product even might be cheaper. So in that case, if we go for international trade, import hokken those particular goods and services will be cheaper in the country. One good example is that Rajyega, for example, in the Maldives, we can actually produce some vegetables. But Rajyega ufadda vegetables varabodu hedne bekuranje fertilizers varabodu spending takin koggen we produce ufaddani. Because of that Rajyega ufadda meva tarukari varam agubodu. But if we import those, it is still cheaper than producing in the country. So this is mainly because several factors purimbuni boditi cost takin hinga tiya ekakanka mahedi economies of scale achieve kureveti rajyega vegetables agubodi. But if we go for international trade, we can go get these at lower prices and even the customers will have broader choices to choose from as well. Then it will also enable flow of ideas and also facilitate the spread of technology around the world. So this is something very important. A trade sabung ideas eggamung and eggauma me ever spread within the egatura technological power was eggamung and eggauma ever spread within there. This will enable every country to actually move forward in terms of their economic growth as well. Then I have said the specialization benefits is a huge benefit of international trade. So let's look into that. So if a nation produced everything it consumed, it would not depend on any other nation for their life. So gaumugo Benuwa hurihas gaumuge terego fadang eche consume kura nama everything is gaumuka depend wakan hand. This could be quite appealing when we hear this. But something to remember is that countries are actually better off if they specialize in some products and trade some of these products for other nations that does not produce it. So let's talk about that. So specialization and trade are concepts based on principle of opportunity cost. So this specialization actually depends on the country's opportunity cost. So the principle of opportunity cost or the law of comparative advantage, it says you guys might would remember that the opportunity cost of something is what you sacrifice to get it. Yeah. So this we learned in the previous lectures. So this opportunity cost varabadang if depend again the specialized money kinetto kung good produce kuranto a particular country will specialize on. So different factor endowments mean some countries can produce goods and services more efficiently than others. So specialization is therefore possible. So ekikahada factors of production we can actually specialize on producing goods and services more efficiently than others. So there are two types of concepts under these two theories, one of which is absolute advantage. A country enjoys an absolute advantage over another country in the production of a good if it uses fewer resources to produce that product than the other countries does. So the country compare kurayaruga ehin misaka rajya India compare kurayaruga. For example, if Maldives can produce a particular product with fewer resources compared to India, then we will say that Maldives has absolute advantage in producing that particular good. Then the other one is comparative advantage. So a country enjoys a competitive advantage in the production of a good if that good can be produced at lower cost in terms of other goods, or where one country can produce goods at a lower opportunity cost. It sacrifices less. That means it sacrifices less resources in production of this particular. So basically, what is saying is that competitive advantage absolute advantage ga tafatuwatan kodaki competitive advantage milibeni when you can produce it at a lower cost nuniyamu lower opportunity cost produce kurevenyamu you have competitive advantage in producing that particular product. But absolute advantage is when you can produce it using fewer resources compared to other goods. So those are the two key differences between these two. So specialization boda me metavegan comparative advantage. So let's go more into detail. So let's say here we see that wheat and cotton production between two countries, New Zealand and Australia. What we see is that let's say per acre, New Zealand can produce 6 bushels and 2 bales if they employ all the factors of production they have to produce this particular product. Yeah. So if they want to produce 6 bushels, they will have to let go 2 bales, say 2 bales of cotton. The opposite is here for the Australia. They can produce actually more of cotton in the per acre compared to wheat. So New Zealand can produce 3 times the wheat that the Australia can produce can in 1 acre. As we can see, New Zealand got 6 bushels ever produce kurave, while Australia got 2 bushels me kurevani. And Australia can produce 3 times the cotton. So Australia can produce more cotton compared to New Zealand. So in this case, they have absolute advantage on 2 different products. So that means New Zealand has absolute advantage in wheat and Australia has absolute advantage in producing cotton. Then competitive advantage, Balar, if a country has a considerable absolute advantage in the production of both goods, so even if a country has absolute advantage in then me kiya tinga the country ya mini absolute advantage maki. For example, let's say hige badaluga one part, let's say New Zealand had absolute advantage in producing both wheat and cotton. So even in that case, David Ricardo would argue that specialization and trade are still mutually beneficial. Hmm? So David Ricardo was a very influential economist in around 18th century. Around, I mean, Adam Smith when I classical economist terega himene wara influential economist David Ricardo. So what he is saying that specialization will still be mutually beneficial even if one particular country can produce both goods with absolute advantage. So what happens is when countries specialize in producing the goods in which they have a competitive advantage, they maximize their combined output and allocate their resources more efficiently. The real cost of producing cotton is the wheat that must be sacrificed to produce it. So this is basically where the competitive advantage comes in. So the real cost of producing cotton is the wheat you will have to let go of in order to produce it. So basically, it is the opportunity cost of producing the cotton. So a country has competitive advantage in cotton production if its opportunity cost in terms of wheat is lower than the other country. That means if you want to produce cotton and if you have to let go of fewer of wheat in order to produce cotton, then you have opportunity cost compared to the other country which has to let go of more wheat in order to produce cotton. So let's see an example. So here you see that Russia and Scotland, they are producing oil and textiles. So 1 unit of labor in each country can produce either oil or textiles. So in that case, in the case of Russia, they can either produce 10 oil barrels or five textile yards. The same for Scotland. They can either produce 20 oil barrels or 40 textiles. A unit of labor in Russia can produce either 10 barrels of oil per period or 5 years, as I have just said. And Scotland goes either 20 barrels of oil or 40 yards of textiles. So here we have calculated the opportunity cost of producing oil and also opportunity cost of producing textiles. So this is simply uh, here in order to produce 10 oil barrels, you will have to let go of 5 textiles. In order to produce 20 oil barrels, you will have to let go of 40 yards of textiles. So that's why to calculate opportunity cost of 1 barrel, what you have to do is that total number of textiles you can produce with all the labor you have divided by the total number of oil barrels you can produce with all the available labors. So here what we see is that opportunity cost per one barrel in Russia is lower than that for Scotland. Yeah, if we look at it, Scotland can actually produce both the goods. Absolute advantage of Balanyamu. They have absolute advantage in both the goods. They could give us dynamic in Scotland. If we consider the opportunity cost of letting go it, Russia actually has to let go only 0.5 yards of textiles in order to produce 1 barrel of oil, while Scotland has to let go of 2 yards of textiles to produce 1 barrel of oil. So in that case, because the opportunity cost is lower for Russia, they have a competitive advantage in producing oil. Then the opposite is here in the textiles case. Here we see that the opportunity cost for Russia is 2 barrels of oil. They will have to let go of 2 barrels of oil in order to produce 1 yard of textiles, while Scotland has to let go of only 0.5 barrels of oil in order to produce 1 yard of textiles. That's why Scotland has a comparative advantage in producing textiles. So because of that, there can be gains from trade if each country specializes in the production of the product in which they has lower opportunity cost. In that case, Russia can specialize on producing oil because they have a lower opportunity cost, and Scotland can specialize in producing textiles because they have a lower opportunity cost in that particular product. So let's see what happens when they specialize. Now, when they specialize, that means previously they were producing both the goods. Yeah, they were producing both the goods. That means in order to produce let's say 5 oil barrels, if they are producing 5 oil barrels, Russia can produce only 2.5 yards of textiles. And if Scotland was producing 10 oil barrels, they can produce only 20 yards of textiles. Then in that case, oil barrels get meaning 15 barrels economy of Edeni, and textiles we can produce only 22.5. So if we add those two quantity, we can get excuse me. Yeah, sorry. So if they specialize in, if they were actually producing both the goods, when we add the total product, then the total output will be 37.5 in this case. But after specialization, let's say because Russia has competitive advantages in producing oil, they can choose to produce the maximum. They can use. They can decide to use all their labor to produce oil without production of uh, any textiles. So they can maximize their oil production, and in the case of Scotland, they can maximize their textile production. Then in that case, there will be 10 barrels of oil and 40 yards of textiles. Then when we add these two, actually the total output is much higher now, because now it is 50 compared to previous 37.5. So because of that, with the specialization, the overall output actually increases. And we can use trade to actually for example, Russia can sell their oil to Scotland, and Scotland can sell their textiles to Russia. So before moving on, let's look at terms of trade. Terms of trade aquí Kobato. So it looks at the relationship between the price perceived for exports and the amount of imports we are able to buy with that money. එක්ගවුමෙක්ගේ එක්ස්පෝර්ට්සින් ලිබේ ආනිංස කිහාවරකත්තෝ ඉම්පෝර්ට කේටපුරවෙන්. So it is basically the index of export prices divided by index of import prices into 100. So if this particular ratio of the terms of trade is increasing, then that means there is an improvement because export prices are rising faster than import prices, and that means fewer exports are needed to be sold in order to pay for the imports of the country. So we will need less exports in order to cater for the imports we need for the country if the ratio is increasing. But even though this is a favorable movement in the terms of trade, it indicates the worsening of competitive position because previous lectures was kiya den gota, if our exports get prices are increasing, that means එහෙන් ගවමතකුන් මිසාලක රාජ්‍යයේ product එක ගන්න බලාරෝ, it will be much expensive for them now. එහෙනම් because of that our competitive position is actually worsening. ඒරෝ අහරෝගේ exporter එහෙන් ගවමතකුන් කුරා demand දව්වෙකෙන් මිදයි. So even though terms of trade are rising, it shows an improvement in covering the import bill. It actually indicates that there is a worsening in the competitive position for our exports. So imports, let's look into imports and how it impacts the overall economy. So should the country import if there is any possibility of producing the commodity domestically? Yeah. Domestically, එවසරක produce කරවෙන් හොන්නඥාමු whether we should import or not. So to answer that, we must consider the law of comparative advantage and how imports may bring home cheaper and better products. So let's say this is the car market in the case of Australia. So here we see the supply curve and the demand curve for Australian car consumers without trade. So without trade, the quantity produced and consumed is 1 million per year, and the price is 20,000 per car. Then if let's say the world price is lower than this at $15,000 per car, then in that case the rest of the world has competitive advantage in producing cars because they can produce at a lower cost than Australia. So in that case, if we go for free international trade, the prices international trade at the aim there will be exports coming into the country, and country ge price was with price davvegen the aim now Kurige 20,000 per car ke badalaga mihar 15,000 per car libe. Because of that, there is a change in quantity demanded. Quantity demand me from 1 million to 1.4 million. But because the price has fallen, the quantity supplied is also falling to from 1.0 million to 0.4 million. So then now we see there is a mismatch between the quantity of goods produced in the country and the quantity of goods demanded in the country. So in order to fill this gap, the imports could actually work. Yeah. So what we see is because of imports, the prices has fallen for consumers, and there is more goods being consumed. So let's look at what happens to total surplus in the economy. No? So this is previously before the trade, where we see there is a consumer surplus and a producer surplus here. With the introduction of imports, now the prices has fallen. Because of that, the consumer surplus is now increasing from this triangle part, the triangle A, to, in addition to that, there will be the part of this B, and D is adding to the consumer surplus. So consumer surplus may have because now the price is actually lower. So there is a bigger gap between how much consumers are willing to pay, that is the demand curve, and the price of the cars in the country. Then, but the drawback is that the producer surplus has decreased. So producers are now worse off because of the imports. Putting in board this blue triangle, now the producer surplus has actually decreased to this small area. So a part of the previous producer surplus has now been transferred to the consumer surplus. But still, there is a net gain in the total surplus, which is represented by this green triangle labeled T. So the overall surplus of the economy has increased. So the welfare of the overall economy is now better off because of the imports. Then let's look at exports. So export occurs when countries sell surplus of production to the rest of the world. So economic ufadda etche ufadda baki vanyamun, they can export it. So countries export for many reasons, but whether it benefits or loses from export depends on its ability to be competitive at the world market and sell at the competing price. So world market ke ehen countries takun a particular product vikka vara compete kureve kamuga varnama export koge vi fadai vani. If we are not being able to sell it at least at the same price as the world market no minyamu every the price like the sell no kureve kama varnama, we will not be benefiting from exports. So is it really worthwhile to export? Let's see. So here you see the coal production of Australia before exports occur. So here we see that there is 100 million tons produced per year with the price of $40 per ton. Yeah. Then what we see is that the coal price is much higher in the world market. The coal is $75 per ton. So because actually Australia is being able to produce it and sell it at a lower price, that is 40 compared to the world price, they have competitive advantage in producing this coal. So when they start to export, they can actually sell it at the world price instead of selling it at $40. So because of that, now the export prices are going up and local customers will now also have to buy at this price. Local customer service me coal prices me much than world price level la ever. So export has increased income and people can buy coal at higher price. So exports Korea gendia me government libe income eba ikthuru wegende. So government ke people will now have a higher purchasing power as well. So they can afford to buy it at higher prices as well. So while local consumption remains at 100 million tons per year, but still they are having to pay a higher price thing. But still, in the world market, they can actually the suppliers can actually now afford to produce more coal, excess coal. So me gaum එතරේක බේනු මිකුරණි 100 million tons and ඉතුර 200 million tons එබ produce kura afford kurave to the producers. So this extra 200 million they can actually export to other countries. So when they do that, what we are seeing is that overall surplus has actually increased by this particular area DEF as opposed to previous before exporting. So let's say the consumer surplus can increase or decrease or remain the same. So we don't know what will happen to consumer surplus to be true, but still the increase in the producer surplus will be much higher to compensate for any decline in the consumer surplus event. So the overall total surplus in the economy will actually increase because the world prices are actually higher than the price they were previously selling in the local market. So we know that the total surplus of the economy actually increases because of imports and also because of exports. But still, what we see is that there are some protections or trade barriers on imports, especially by far export service, but especially on imports. So why do these trade barriers? Why are these trade barriers imposed? Let's look at that. So protectionism, Mia. So it is actually the practice of shielding a sector of the economy from foreign competition. Yeah. So countries try to stop foreign imports while helping their own businesses to expand exports. So by Gautam Hasuku Saruk, if the this particular producers have high lobbying power, then the government might impose such protectionism measures to actually stop foreign imports coming into the country and also boost the export businesses of the country as well. So they do this by using trade barriers, which could be tariffs, quotas, embargoes, or subsidies. So these are all examples of trade barriers. So there are two types of trade barriers, one of which is tariff. Tariff, I will go more into detail on that. Then there are non-tariff barriers such as quotas, subsidy, voluntary export restraint, foreign currency control, and other restrictions on international trade as well. So we'll go more into detail on that now. So first of all, tariffs. So the tariff acts like a tax in the local country, local economy as well. So but tariff is a tax imposed on foreign goods. So import kurairuga egg naga tax mikiyani tariffs. So tariffs will cause the cost of import goods to go up, and this means that the price of the goods will increase as well. So tariff dakkan jehunima import kura importers will now actually increase their prices to the customers as well. So as I said before, tariffs can be divided into three types, one of which is ad valorem tariff. So this is basically import tax that is calculated based on the percentage of the value of the imported goods. So import bill percentage they will have to pay. For example, let's say car we spend money let's say $20,000. So that 20,000 ke percentage pay kuran as ad valorem tax. Then there's specific tax, which is fixed tax figure that does not depend on the value of the imported goods, but a set number per item. Yeah. So for example, Purimpuri case let's say we imported a car which is 10,000 value. So am pay let's say $100. I got in a specific fixed known is specific tariff $100,000 the same amount of tax or tariff. So a specific tariff. And there is compound of these two, that is a combination of the ad valorem and the specific tariffs, so which are applied to manufactured products embodying raw materials that are subject to tariffs mainly. So this could be misalaka wakiwaraka වරකවුර දශුම් import kuranyamun import bill ge waki percentage ke nagani then ege ituran import kura komme unit taka meni ware pay kuran jehene ekal gota koi gota west by countries takon epahure mekala tariffs impose offer. Now how does tariff work actually? So it raises the price above the world price. So let's say previously our price was, let's say, 15,000 per car. In this case, 15,000 per car. But with the tariff of, let's say, there is a $4 tariff, so $400,000 tariff. So because of that, Puriga mean price ge machan itura 4,000 niyannani. So now the price has actually increased. So that is the tariff amount. So because of that, the quantity demanded is now declining from 1.4 million to this particular value. And but because of the increase in the prices, the local supply, yes, mihar supply kuram will kura amount me from previous 0.4 million to this particular value, which is close to 1 million. So now suppliers has increased their supply and the demand has fallen. So imports without tariff is this gap, that is 1 million cars per year. But with the import, so with the import, what we see is that with the import tariff, what we see is that the import kura amount miharmi kuda vekendani. So because of these tariffs, the previous consumer surplus is this particular big area, but now it is shrinking because the prices has gone up. But because the prices has gone up, the producers surplus has actually increased now. Yeah. Then in addition to that, the this particular area E and F midbayaki me dead loss created because of the tariff. This particular area D Miyaki, the tariff income that the government will earn because of imposing of this tax on the imports. So the overall economic surplus consider Kurarga, we will consider this particular part as well because it is getting into the government. Deadweight loss ki gotham we consider Kurani the part E and F. So, but still, what we are seeing is that because of the tariff, the overall surplus has decreased in the economy. So, to give summary of what happens because of tariff, the price of the commodity has increased now because of the tariff. The imports has decreased compared to before. The government earns a revenue from the introduction of tax represented by the this square in D. Producer surplus has now increased from previous triangle of C to the addition of this C. We now have that this part B as well. So C plus B is now producer surplus. Consumer surplus has now decreased. Previously, it was the areas A, B, E, D, and F, and now it is only the area A. And the total surplus of the economy has decreased because of the creation in the deadweight loss. Then I have added another example which you guys can go through later. And then we go through Kuraruga a full screen a laugh go through Korea Mutapad fast. They have another way Sunade from a sort of overlap for by writings. Then another type of restriction is import quotas. So quota is a limit on the quantity of imports. एक माने कि वाकी वारकर गे quantity ये इतो एतरे कुरेवेनी गाँव में मिसाल का आहारे के तेरेगा गाँव राज्य एतरे कुरेवेनी 1000 cars. So एक आधा quota है. So the main effect of the quota is that it increases the price of the imported goods. Then Daganaka tarifa ekkahala reason me impact ke miyannani because of quota hama prices itruwege midani imports tabwege midani it creates a deadweight loss as well. So it has equivalent effect as a tariff. But because of the limited quantity of goods, consumers are willing to spend a lot of money to get this. If the particular good is needed in the country, even if there is, let's say, even if import quota is imposed on, let's say, motorbikes, then motorbikes what we see is that every single person now needs a motorbike, so they will be spending a lot of money to buy this. So one example of quota, import quota is that EU has a quota on number of Chinese garments they will allow into the EU or EU countries. Then a more acceptable and more modern type of protection which aims to limit the amount of certain good being imported is voluntary export restraint agreement known as VERA, which is quite same as the import quota. Yeah, so voluntary export restriction gami wagotaki instead of misalaka rajeng mi rajeng misalaka China upadda etche waki particular product rajeng etere kurang import quota lumuge badaluga we will tell the we will either tell the Chinese government, Nunia Chinese government, tung amilaya me negotiations like they will actually impose a export restriction from their side. China guna China ge exports the wakiwarake me rajya geneveni. So this is a more actually acceptable and modern type of import quota, but still it has the same effect of uh, this import quota. So with the quota, so here you see an example. What we see is that before any quota or such thing, with free trade, there will be uh, imports going on, and what we see is that the supply is here, that this particular yellow dot. So it's above 66 above 66 quantities of shards in this case per day. Then but what we see is that domestic supply is below that particular value. So with the import quotas, let's say we have import kureveni wakwarke ponima kurige me import kuramundiya amount ke ebba me maduvegen diyayima. Now we see is that the total quantity in the economy has fallen. Because of that, the price is now higher compared to previous $12. Now the customers will have to pay $20 because of this import quota. So if there is a full import ban, every can import that particular product the prices will go until up to this 23, because miyaki with domestic supply or demand get equilibrium. So without trade, the prices will be 23. So if there is full import ban, then this will be the prices, which is much higher even compared to a partial import quota. Then another one is subsidies. So export subsidies by far government there. So these are the payments to domestic firms to encourage their exports. So it will reduce the cost of production because they give a subsidy. Then it will make the exports cheaper because the cost of production is lower. Now these particular businesses can afford to sell it in the world market at a lower price. And it will also boost the employment in the economy because of the subsidies, and the cost of production falls, and now and also they can export more goods and services. Because of that, there will be increase in the production because now they have a bigger market to cater. So in order to cater for this bigger market and higher production, they can actually hire more employees, and the unemployment rate in the country will fall. So this is closely related to dumping. So dumping the key when a firm or industry sells products in the world market at prices below the cost of production. So me by gaumutakung by hasakung me, let's say there was some accusations by USA or towards China that they are actually dumping the markets of particular products by selling at the prices which is lower than the cost of production. So that export on a demand so this is a particular controversial thing. So subsidies is quite same as this, because aslo if there was no subsidy given, then the cost of production will be higher and our exports cannot meet the world price levels. So economic subsidy boost. So it is closely related, but it is not the same. Dumping is a very unethical manner in terms of international trade. Then there is foreign currency control. So besides the previously mentioned things, the government can also control the foreign currency used for imports. Among the methods used to control the quantity of goods imported is by controlling the total foreign currency that is usually used to import the goods. Another alternative is by selling the foreign currency at the higher rate compared to the market rate. So basically, what is happening is, for example, uh, actually foreign currency controls can help uh, the some of the importers, or it will also access a discouragement factor for imports. For, let's say, in particular countries, they have a particular foreign currency amount. Then uh, let's say, because one good example could be, because of this COVID situation, what about Sri Lanka, Fiji, Bahamas, නිකන්තනක වර පහම රාජ්‍යයක එක්ගොත වර බොඩ economy වර්ස්වගෙන් දී and foreign currency earnings the වර බොඩව දව්වගෙන් දී. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to actually limit the imports for unnecessary goods during this period. Misaka luxury motorbikes, nuniyam wakiwaraka bore itural gold gaumang etere kurong. So ekala HSA what they have done is they have stopped commercial banks angani. You cannot provide foreign currency for imports of these things. So එකමුත වරක් established system එකේ මේ ඉන්නනි රාජ්‍යයක dollar there is a black market and we can buy කොම්මිහික් ගතම this dollar. In those countries they have FX regulations where the buying and selling of foreign currency is allowed only to commercial banks and authorized dealers. If it was foreign currency and there will be no way of them getting foreign currency. Imports so that's a good example. So then another thing could be misaka foreign currency and hold pura bayaku a market rate of a high rate of foreign currency sell kurong erong a foreign currency ke agubodo wege midani erong effort kurave mihu mimatuwani. So a effort kurave mihar dollar libe varu madu vima import kurave varwas madu wege midani. So ekala controls that ever naga. So I have mentioned that maybe this could be something out of this topic, but I have mentioned that by government වරබොඩන් එක හොට්ටේ banking system foreign currency earnings me power living entani අස්තු රාජ්‍යයක පෙර market මිහාර මියෙන් හාලතුම් අස්තු පෙර market solution එක ගෙන්න රාජ්‍ය බස් ගෙන විදානේ වර බොඩු measure මියකි රාජ්‍ය what we can do is මිහාර රාජ්‍ය fully by foreign currency earnings misaka tourism sector ge waki by murani so emihuna libe earnings asu gauma kan mugene. So what we can do, one thing we can do is we can do a regulation which actually requires for all the export repatriation into the country, all export proceedings gauma gennan chehene and actually against the rajya banking system ge teriya maru puravi gendan chehene. So in Aerong Rajya banking system, there will be enough foreign currency to provide for everyone at the bank rate. Aerong Hurihamanavas a Fada Vegan Dane. Instead, Asumar Rajya banking system, there were foreign currency in a market, Ufedigam Murani. So Aerong Asuma we extended band Tereg Hurihamanavas foreign currency to begin. So this is something you guys need to think about. Rajya Kureve Kamemiyaki. So you can go before that as well. Then another thing is embargo. So countries put complete bans on goods being imported from a certain country. So consumers have no choice but to buy from home produce. So USA has a trade embargo with Cuba. Cuba go for the USA can during apartheid, Ireland had trade embargo with South Africa, though. So this was a period of where there was a racial discrimination. So South Africa, there was this South Africa, there was racial discrimination. So because of that, Ireland actually introduced trade embargo on the exports of South Asia. Oil crisis ke tere 1970s 1980 is oil crisis ufedigen IES ami trade embargo taken ufedigen dige ima misala kami ane eru kami OPEC oil producing mi bottom Middle Eastern countries, they decided not to sell their oil to particular countries. It's like a USA කාලකමත කෙවසරක නොවික්කන් නිම්මි නිම්මීම එහෙම දෙකෙන් එහා බොඩම් oil prices මච්ච දියයි ඒරුග. So ekah trade embargoes miharus ever exist way, like in the case of Cuba and USA. And by Muslim kamutakung there are trade embargoes with Israel. Israel gave us me producing egamang important pure vene. So ekahala embargoes pure. Then there are some hidden restrictions as well. So then maybe there were outright restrictions. Okay. So there are some hidden restrictions. For example, it could include also subtly me foreign competition dakpuram vegen noni imports dakpuram vegen nakore subtle measures take me procedures than ituru koggenna ekalkan kan through ko hidden restrictions eba pure. Isaka administrative devices include complicated forms to fill, special testing regulations and safety certifications. So Mikal Mikal process take impose koggen there are some hidden restrictions. They do not say okay with important but they are required to go through this particular regulations, forms and documentation process. So this will actually undermine the foreign competition. So Malaysia, they have a national car called Proton. So government can actually direct all the government departments to use only locally produced this Proton brand cars. So erung egawmuga miufadda Proton demand high wegen midani එහෙන් brands ta import kurum madu wegen dan. The government can also direct financial institutions such as banks to reduce the giving of loans to support purchase of imported goods. So importers are loan dukuram imbaru dakkuram angageng, so they will not have finance so that imports will fall. So mikal hidden restrictions tavis ebahurenagaf. So what are the reasons for these protections? So we have measures the nagang purikon reasons naketto. So it is said that it protects jobs. I will go more into detail of these in the upcoming slides. So some countries engage in unfair trade practices such as dumping. So local businesses protect kurang mikahala measures the negitane. So also cheap foreign labor makes competition unfair. It's like a rajya labor high labor means like a wages high Bangladesh labor wages davvima, they will have that advantage. So we can so that it was by Paratakondaga reason. Then protection safeguards national security. So national security attacks kura kamake. It discourages dependency on other countries. Say it safeguards infect industries or other fashaganna industries that pick up kurang safeguard mikala measures. So it will also raise revenue both of the government and of the local businesses. Say so these are all measures that some of these have actually some weight onto it. Some by so aslu protections could be needed in some cases, but there are some let's say job argument it will save jobs and protections gain. So trade destroys jobs in industries that compete with imports. Say by far import a produce ufadda me companies that compete no they those businesses will go bankrupt and there will be unemployment. Arguments banaga. But economists respond to it is that look at the data to see whether rising imports cause rising unemployment. So for the data balashe balaf then wahakashe. So let's look at data. It's like a US imports are unemployment. So US imports as a percentage of GDP 1961 in 2010 it has been increasing quite a lot for just above 4%. Now it is around 15%. Then let's see what happened to unemployment. So unemployment kamabad badalanade. Unemployment did not really pick up. Unemployment rate about macha kanude. So total unemployment does not rise as imports rise because job losses from imports are offset by the growing gains in export industries. So trade ಹುಳುವಾಲಿ export industry ಮಿಲಿಬಿಗಿಂದ ಫಾದಾಗೆ ಸಬಬುಂ ಅಸ್ತು import industry in loss within the jobs the export industry in gain within nemidani, so unemployment does not really get affected by this. So even if all goods could be produced more cheaply abroad, the country need only have a competitive advantage to have a viable export industry and to gain from the trade. So absolute advantage of balaf ehim komme country yakun cheaply ko produce kurawonas nonia mong resources madam produce kurawonas. We need only competitive advantage in only one single industry. So again we can be able to gain by trading with the rest of the world. I think the another one was national security argument. So what they say is that an industry vital to national security should be protected from foreign competition to prevent dependence on imports that could be disrupted while wartime. Yeah. So economists may respond with Kurani, okay, fine, as long as we base policy on the true security needs. But Gina Fahara producers may exaggerate their own importance to national security to obtain protection from foreign competition. So ginafara aslu national security measures we influence nukurakan kamukavis producers, they actually do lobby towards these for their own benefit. In fact, industry argument. So what they are saying is that a new industry argues for temporary protection until it is mature and can compete with foreign firms. So economists may respond Mikurani. So it will be difficult for government to determine which industry will eventually be able to compete with the foreign firms and whether benefits from establishing these industries exceeds costs to consumers of restricting imports. So me company me for the infant industries taka may protect kuram wegen trade restrictions taga lagging consumers milibigenda ಗೆಲ್ಲುಮ ಎವ್ವರುಗೆ ಗೆಲ್ಲುಮವ್ವರೆ ಬಡು ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ತಕ್ಕೆ ಲಿಬಿಗೆನ್ ದಾಣೆಯೇ by protecting this particular industry, or whether we do not know whether this industry will ever be able to compete with foreign firms either. So it is a huge risk at the cost of consumers. Consumers incur currency cost because of restriction on imports. So besides this, if a firm will be profitable in the long run, it should be willing to incur temporary losses. Ara bontiya kono hifeneye temporary losses incur currency. So in the long run, they might be able to be profitable as well. But still, one thing to remember is that governments do help infant industries to protect from foreign firms, some trade restrictions and lag in this. Then the other one was unfair competition argument. So producers argue their competitor in another country have unfair advantage. Misalkan government subsidies deniye noniamo labor cost madashe. So they have unfair advantage, unfair competition advantage. So okay, great. Then we can import extra cheap products subsidized by other countries' taxpayers. No? So government kommehen subsidize koggeng noniya mong subsidize government miule domestic firms taka subsidize koggeng sarukaro ituru haraduta kennuko ehen sarukarakun subsidize koggeng ehen government taxpayer money in spend koggeng ufadda cheap produce take government gatera kuravidane, so we can enjoy those products. So the gains to our consumers will exceed the losses to our producers in this case. So these are, of course, in all of these cases, there will be pros and cons, but these are some responses by the economists. think the production is a bargaining chip argument. So, example, US can threaten to limit imports of French wine unless France lifts their quotas on African beef. So, economists' response to this is that suppose France refuse Korea, wine, me American beef ga mihori quotas nagang. Then in that case, US and India is the option, both of which are bad. One of which is restricting imports from France, which will reduce the welfare of the US economy. So as I said, import reduce kurima eba their welfare cost total surplus eba dabbegende. So this is a bad choice for them. Another choice for them is not restricting imports. Then aero miwah dakka for MS kala restriction and nugenaimas US credibility eba gel digende. Mesaka France in MS kala me France in hama mi quotas behetti ane US in threaten kuramo with any French gewaina me import restrictions lana me ekamaku France in MS kala duyen nudini maves US in come nukot tibini maves USA credibility mi gel digendani. So sometimes there is no better way for you to do it instead of just simply letting the international trade take place, and there be free trade among the countries. So there are some arguments. Then may mikiyadini hum arguments against these restrictions as well. So inefficiency is encouraged. Resources are misallocated because of the protections. Then because resources misallocated means a competitive advantage net producting of the masake fund because there is trade barriers. Then also the government cost of living high again midani because misaka import restrictions like the overall price levels midani matcha. So because of the cost of living in the country is increased. So have a Mikal protection measures and nagang economists dekolo hada sababuta miyaki. Welfare gains will be lost kuring kiyading gota overall economic welfare gains midani dabbegen. And also there could be retaliation measures. Like a Rajya may impose kuri India me export me trade restriction ne. Air retaliate kuram vege India in aneka Rajya hamaikani miunda me fish export nonia or tourism sector export various measures second naga fund. So ekala vishaya nagagen misaka in the case of Maldives we will be worse off in government on retaliation vishaya nagafi because we are heavily dependent on imports. So ekala retaliation measures could be disadvantages for countries if they take protection measures. So then economic integration. So economic integration occurs when two or more nations join to form a free trade zone. So two or more, whether it is bilateral, nonia, multilateral agreement midani, that particular countries tak terega free trade zone ne free trade kamundane. Eki economic integration. Some of the famous economic Mikhail free trade zone Turkey, one of which is European Union. So it is a trading bloc composing of 27 member states. This was founded with only 6 member countries in 1993. Now it has 27 members. Then the US-Canadian free trade agreement, which is an agreement in which the United States and Canada aggregate to eliminate all the barriers to trade between these two countries in 1981. Then there is North American Free Trade Agreement known as NAFTA. So this was signed between USA, Mexico, and Canada. So Kuriga me and US and Canada deterega me FTA. Itura Mexico was Himanagan they did a NAFTA agreement called NAFTA. So they in 1993. So these three countries have a free trade zone. Then Myanmar Trump warang about the Kolohada, if you guys are keeping up with world politics, warang about the Kolohada, he is saying this is the worst agreement ever in the history of the world. So America war about to Geldun Takil begin Dani Ekala Wakata can be the Kevani, but you look at the numbers, to be honest, America is actually benefiting from this. But there could be some things done better, but still they are benefiting from it. Then there's the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, on GATT, GATT. And this is an international agreement signed by many countries in 1947 to promote liberalization of foreign trade. So, also World War II, Nimma Warburds reforms the Annamundiai. So, countries the Kamisaka, because it was restriction take Bahatage, countries the economic growth and elegant Hurahaka Vanative. This is an agreement they got into liberalization of foreign trade in 1947. Then how Mikala Gotaka edu followed by me and a World Trade Agreement was me for home fitting IMF World Bank Mika and Tam was fitting World War II of we bought a liberalized co bodang economic growth promote ko ekalakan the kuram fitting Tantamiyaki. Then one last thing on World Trade Organization. So this is the only global international organization dealing with the rules of trade between nations. So it is placed. So it actually replaced the previously the Mimikiad in General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade in 1995. So 1995 the World Trade Organization I think currently there are 164 member states in WTO. So some rules of WTO is they lobby for no discrimination between different countries in terms of trade. There the reciprocity, for example, ekkamun tariff wala fiyamun ege badalu ganen kaumun misaka rajya India ya desireka misaka India import kura icche rajyen me tariff wala fikama wanam eti reciprocate koddeshe India inves misaka rajyen export kura icchekun me tax walage. Then also general prohibition of quotas. So because quotas the lung prohibit kure waraboda. Then fair competition practice kurang they also promote. Then binding tariffs ufaddang so wati level me tariffs the maintain kurang eba bar wala WTO. So basically WTO is kind of like a court without actual judges. So Eggoma and Eggoma, they say a trade issue in Yavis, they can go to the WTO because if they have signed in this particular agreement, they will have to adhere to it. So one very recently, China, yeah, US are the feud get China went into WTO saying that US is actually going against their agreements. So ekalbodu case for India, then there was a bench. Then me case Kuriak posting and without judges, without actual judges, some judges so then so that's it from my side. Then WTO ki warabada mikha the WTO ke all the decisions is midani a WTO ke gaumata ke meduga mi naga vote kun gina faharang it is unanimous. So ekagot kahinga organization in WTO okay, it is a very useful international organization in the case of trades and free trade me promote puram warabada marwala organization in it. Then I have added some extra videos for you guys to look at. So this is it on the slides. Then let me give you the attendance form first. Attendance form fill puramunda gadiga